Welcome to a new edition of the Neon Jazz interview series with New York City Jazz Bassist, composer, and improviser Simón Willson. He opened up about his debut 2021 CD with this trio called Family Plan. It was conceived in 2018 in Brooklyn. He is Chilean-born, he's eclectic, and an in-demand sideman, and he has toured with a host of different artists in Europe, the United States, Canada, and South America. Over time, he has done work with greats like Dave Douglas, Ethan Iverson, George Garzone, and so many others. His story is a good one. Enjoy.
So let's go ahead and dive right in here and talk about Family Plan. And,
Perfect.
You know, it comes out during kind of the tail end of this pandemic. It's a very strange time. It's been a strange year and a half. How does it feel to have an album coming out now?
Well, it was interesting because we got funding before the pandemic. Like in December of 2019, I got a grant from the Chilean government, and we were supposed to record it earlier on, I think the funds were going to be released in March, so we were going to record it in April or May of 2020. And then everything got delayed. We kind of had a little pod with the band, so we were still rehearsing a lot throughout the pandemic. The pianist is Canadian, so he moved back to Canada, but once he moved back in early September of last year, we started rehearsing a lot. It's so hard to talk about it now because we're still close to that time, but it was definitely weird, but it helped us in the sense that there were less things happening, so we had more time to rehearse. And it was just seeing the same two people or the same three people all the time, That way, it was kind of nice to be able to have time to develop the music that way.
What are you ultimately hoping the listener gets from this album? And a lot has gone into it. These are all, I think there's going to be a special place and time for these albums that are coming out now. But what do you ultimately hope the listener gets from this?
What we would like it's to inhabit a space in which I would say we're coming out of the jazz tradition, but we don't stop there, right? Like there are certain elements of electronic music in the album in terms of post-production. And I think what we would like people to keep with is, well, one, the fact that this is a band and it sounds like a band, and that there is a sound that is cohesive no matter who wrote the compositions, because the three of us write and we have very different styles of writing, but still that there is a sound that transcends who's the writer. So that's one thing. And the other is that we are trying to find sound within the piano trio tradition in the jazz world, but that it's not necessarily coming straight from, Oscar Peterson or the Bad Plus. We're still trying to carve our niche.
Let's kind of talk a little bit about, and we'll kind of depart from the pandemic, but this was a time of, quarantine, lockdown, self-reflection. Mm-hmm. What did you learn about yourself during this time that maybe you didn't realize before that will make you stronger as we all reemerge now?
For me, it was a process of filtering in the sense that right before the pandemic, I was working 5 or 6 nights a week here in New York City. I was doing a lot of gigs just to sustain myself. My primary source of income is as a musician. I don't have a day job. And I think what the pandemic did was, first of all, everyone stopped gigging, right? So that was the first thing. And then as we emerge out of the pandemic, I kind of realized what my musical community was, because there were people that I kept seeing throughout it all and that I kept playing with. In a kind of a weird passive way, it just filtered those musical relationships that I had with before the pandemic that I maybe wasn't that happy with and that I didn't really care so much for the music. And now I feel like I have more power to say no to stuff. But it's almost like the pandemic took care of that for me. And I think it put on the balance what is the music that I care about, because I had so much time by myself thinking about music that I love and that I care about. I would say that is the main thing.
So, all of us have this flashpoint where we get interested in jazz and music becomes a part of us. What was that for you? How did you get involved with not only becoming a musician, but jazz music?
So I grew up in a pretty musical household. My dad was always listening to Coltrane and Monk and Miles. So I grew up with those sounds. We had a piano. My sister was taking piano lessons. She's 8 years older than me, so a little bit older, but and she was always practicing classical music. My mom listened to a lot of classical music. So music was always part of the family. But I would say the big catalyst was I was really into soccer, and in, I believe it was 6th grade, I had an injury, and then I got more serious about, I had started as a guitar player on 5th grade, and then on 6th or 7th grade, when I got the injury, I transferred to bass, and then I got really serious because I had more time. I was spending a lot of time playing soccer, and then I started spending a lot of time playing bass, and I fell in love with it, and the rest is history. But yeah, it never felt like a forced thing. It was always something that was around that I gravitated towards. I could have been a lawyer. I could have been something else. It just, when I was 18, I was like, okay, I'm just going to do the riskiest thing now. Kind of worked out, I guess.
What was the first live show you saw that really blew you away, that made you think, I want to do that with my life?
Oh, that's a great question. It's interesting. I remember seeing U2 in 2006 when I was like 13. And even though I really liked that show at that time, that's not the thing I thought about. I think when I saw Radiohead maybe in 2008, I think that was more like, oh, that's kind of what I want to be doing. So I was like, 16 or 15 when that happened. But it didn't necessarily mean that that's the kind of music I wanted to do. It was just more like, it'd be amazing to be able to tour the world and play music for a living.
What is it that you like the best about being a musician? You are in a unique position of being able to create something that a lot of people enjoy listening to on a daily basis. What do you like the best about this?
Okay, that's a great question, and I think I have a twofold answer. In selfish terms, it's a great opportunity for me to be part of a very loving and encouraging community of musicians that I see, like if I'm gigging a lot, I see a lot of different people that I really love and care about on a weekly basis. So, and I get to experience a very intimate contact with them through improvisation and through playing. And on the other side, it's bringing something or trying to create and bring joy to audiences that, it's very common that I play at a bar where there's no, we start playing and the vibe immediately changes. And then people come up to you and they're like, wow, that was so beautiful what you guys were doing. So thank you so much for being here. And being a part of the community that way, the community at large, meaning, not only just musicians, it's really special being able to bring beauty to the world, especially in times where it's been very challenging. I have noticed that post-pandemic, there is kind of maybe people are paying more attention to those things. It's maybe too early to say, but I have noticed more young people going out to shows, and I feel like there's a little bit of a different attitude towards the arts in general.
Yeah, I agree. So if you could get into a time machine and go back in time and see a jazz musician live, who would you want to go see?
I would love to see, there's so many people like Lester Young in 1936 or Bird in the 40s, Miles' First Quintet in the 50s, Monk, Coltrane. It's too many people. I can't. Hard to say one. Or Ned Coleman in 1959.
There's so many ways that you can go with that for sure. Everyone has a perception or an idea of who they think you are, your family, your friends, your fans, but ultimately you live your life. Who do you think you are?
I think this dude that loves music. I love current affairs, and, I love learning about history and politics. I love bringing different perspectives and try to understand things for what they are and people for what they are, try not to impose my own biases, even intentions of what I want. I want to understand things for what they are. I guess I'm not really describing who I am, but I feel like it comes across as I'm always trying to connect, if that makes any sense. I feel like I'm just a vessel for connection. I want to embrace people. I want to embrace different musics. I want to have a conversation with people that think very differently from me.
That's a great answer. I saved the hardest for last minute. Hey, thank you for taking some time out to talk about the album. It's a wonderful listen, and good luck with everything as we move forward.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I'm glad you enjoyed the record.
Thanks for listening and tuning in to another Neon Jazz interview, where we give you a bit of insight into the finest players in New York City, Kansas City, and spots all over the world, giving fans all that jazz. And thanks to Simón for his time, music, and story. If you want to hear more interviews, go to Famous Interviews with Joe Domino in the iTunes Store. Visit Neon Jazz at youtube.com, and for everything Neon Jazz all the time, go to the neonjazz.blogspot.com. Until next time, enjoy the jazz, my friends.
Neon Jazz.